So good morning, students. Yesterday we saw this program for copy constructor, right? So copy constructor, as you saw, it is a constructor which initialize an object of a class using another object of the same class. So yesterday I explained to you this program, right? Okay. So similar program concept we saw in classes and object also. Okay. So students, if you understand the concept of classes and object nicely, okay, so you won't face much problem understanding my explanation, my video explanation. Okay, so though the program seems lengthy, okay, but all the programs here in the textbook are almost same. Okay, in the chapter the programs are repeated again and again, so I don't need to repeat all parts of the program again and again, so I'll just be focusing on the important portions. Okay, so uh, those of you who have studied classes and object very nicely, okay, this will be much easier for you to understand. Okay, so we have seen default constructor, we have seen parameterized constructor, we have seen copy constructor. The all of these, all three constructors though, have only one purpose: to see that the objects gets initialized, right? Proper initialization of the object, that is the object that are members. Okay, under default constructor we saw that the the default constructor declares no parameter, right? It passes no argument. But under the parameterized constructor we saw that the parameterized constructor declares parameter, it passes arguments, right? And under the copy constructor we saw that uh, another object can be initialized with uh, another object from the same class. So the data members of one object, data could be transferred to another object, right? So that is something like, so we can duplicate data from one object to another object. It was so it can be done with the copy constructor, as the word says, copy constructor. Okay, keep in mind that be it copy constructor, parameterized constructor, or default constructor, they are all special member functions. Okay, so a constructor name is similar to a class name, but it is a member function, a specialized member function. Okay, so in this particular program there is an error that has been shown. Okay, so here we can see that in this part, if we use two constructors in a class where one is a default constructor and the other is a parameterized constructor that takes one argument that is declared as default. So in this case, the parameterized constructor takes a default argument. Okay, this situation can cause ambiguity. Okay, so here in this particular example, a very short example, you can see that uh, here two parameters are declared. Okay, two parameters are defined here. So under the class, so the class name is only number. Okay, so under the private access specified, the data member is int number, and then under the public access specified, the constructor member function has been defined here. So here you can see this is the constructor, this is the constructor name. So in this case, a constructor with no argument, as you can see in this within this uh, parenthesis, there is no variables declared, there is no parameters declared, right? So this is a default constructor. Okay, this is a default constructor because it declares no parameter. Under the default constructor body, okay, the variable number has been assigned the value 0. Okay, so again we have another constructor which is the parameterized constructor with default argument. So the constructor names are same, and within the parenthesis we have the parameter type, the parameter name, and which has been assigned the value 10. So in this case, this 10 is the default argument. We have already seen what is default argument and how do you assign the default argument, right, under function prototypes in the function chapter. Okay, so this is the default value, that is default argument or default value is assigned when in the function chapter you saw that the default argument is assigned when the calling function has not when in the calling function the actual parameter has not been assigned any value, right? So in that case the default argument value gets passed, right? In this case also it is the same. Okay, so in this case 10 num equal to 10, the value 10 is assigned to num, and so when the function body gets executed, number is equal to num, the value 10 gets assigned to the variable number. So in this case 0 gets assigned to the variable number, and in this case 10 gets assigned to the variable number. So two different constructors, okay, with the same name. Okay, however, how do we identify this? This is a default constructor. How do we identify this? This is a parameterized constructor because it declares parameter, it passes argument, right? So two different values it contains. Okay, so two different values it stores, these two constructors. So and this is the normal member function definition, void show number. Okay, so under this function body, a cout statement number is, so that value will be displayed either 0 or 10. Okay, now in the main function the call to the parameterized constructor or the default parameter is written here. So in here we have the class name and with the object name declared. So object initialization, so the object gets declared, that is the object name is first num. Okay, so as you can see here in the next line, first num dot show number, so this will invoke this calling function. But in the case of this, okay, as you know that the how a constructor gets invoked, a constructor gets invoked whenever an object gets declared. As soon as this object gets declared, or this object gets created by the class name only number, okay, the constructor gets invoked. But in this case two constructors are there, so which one will it invoke, right? So there's no proper definition, for the constructor to be invoked, right? It can invoke, either it can invoke this one or it can invoke this one. Now if in this case, in this object there was an implicit call, okay, if suppose here the values were assigned, the default values were assigned to the object, in that case it will call this parameterized constructor. Okay, or in the case if suppose it is like this, okay, only num first num, right, in that case it may call the default constructor. Okay, but still then it will result in error. Okay, so this error is rectified in the following page, that is using the constructor overloading. Okay, so in under constructor overloading what we do is that we declare two objects. Okay, one object for the default constructor and one object for the parameterized constructor. Okay, so now next we will see this so here when attempt is made to compile this program, the compiler flags the following error message, ambiguity between. Okay, so this message will result. Okay, so you can type this program and just check. Okay, so every program that has been taught, okay, every program that is in your textbook, type it, okay, and have a look at it. Okay, check whatever errors you get, and then try to understand that concept. Now overloaded class member functions. Okay, so we have already seen function overloading. So under parameterized constructor, under copy constructor also we have seen this overloading. Okay, so same like function overloading, there's also constructor overloading. Okay, now we're talking about overloading of class member functions. Okay, so under function overloading you saw that the same function name could be used or called provided the functions, even though if they have the same name, they pass different arguments, right? They have different parameter types or parameter types, right? So under that you saw that under the function overloading you saw that if there are three parameters, uh, for the same function, for the other functions also there has to be three parameters passed, but only different data types. Okay, but however under this overloading of class member functions you will see that, okay, you can have you can have the same function name, okay, provided, okay, with different number of parameters. Okay, so see, overloaded member functions are particularly useful when some but not all of a member function parameters are needed. Okay, it may be that not all the parameters may be needed, not all the variables may be needed, right? Okay, so in such case, okay, so here, suppose you want to set only the employee code, employee name, and employee designation, letting the class default to the employee salary. Okay, currently there is no easy way to initializing overloading employee constructor with different number of parameters, uh, making it possible for the program to pass 0 or more arguments. Okay, so it may be that in this, if you have seen this, right, so this is implicit code, right? Here you're passing the value, you're passing the value 100, Miss Sujata PhD computer, and 12,500, right? So this value gets passed. Now if you have to use overloading of member functions, right, in this case it says that it may be possible that if suppose you just want to pass this EMB salary, right, that let it be that the EMB salary for all the employees be same. Okay, but it may be that this employee code, employee name, and employee designation might be different, right? So you can see that now we can relate with a real world problem, right? What it is not that, as in the previous example you have seen that uh, when an object gets initialized by another object, right, the same data gets copied, okay, or using the function overloading concept, the same data gets copied, right? Okay, so it is actually not practical, right? Copying the same data, using the copy constructor, copying the same data again and again, right? Okay, so it may be that uh, the first employee, if it is 100, the next employee will be 101. If the first name is Miss Sujata, the second name will be Ramesh, right? But the employee salary might be same. So what happened is that how many parameters here? 1, 2, 3. How many arguments here? 4 arguments. Okay, so it has to accept declare 4 parameters. So in the first case it may be that it may declare 4 parameters. In the second case it may be that it may only declare 3 parameters. Okay, so that is explained in this particular program. Okay, so write a program to demonstrate the concept of overloading class members functions. So likewise, everything is same here. The class name is employee, okay, private access specifier, the data members are declared here, and in here under the public access specifier you have your default parameterized constructor declaration here. Okay, so employee, this is the name of the uh, constructor. Okay, so these are the parameters that are declared, okay, that are passed. So here employee code, e name, e designation, and e salary along with the data type. Okay, so you can see the different data types are there, and these are your member functions. Okay, member functions, normal member functions declaration. So this is your prototype. Okay, but you will see the difference is that this is a special member function, a constructor, right? And this is your normal member functions. Okay, so here the function name is, the return type is void, the function name is emb over. Okay, and so these are the parameters that are declared by the function. Okay, so the arguments that will be passed will be e code, e name, e designation, and e salary in the first case, right? In the second overloading method, okay, you can see that this name is same, the function name is same. Like I said, the same function name can be reused again and again, right? So that saves the program space as well as compiling time. Okay, so you don't need to create function bodies again and again. The same function body can be reused again and again, or the same function name can be reused again and again. So in this case you can see that the same function name, however, see here the parameters are declared e code, e name, e designation. So only 3 parameters are declared here. In the next one in the third member function, okay, equal ename only, and in the fourth oh yes, so we have three member functions, okay, that is been overloaded. So in the first case all the parameters are declared, in the second case only three parameters are declared, and in the third case two parameters are declared. So what about the rest? The rest will be filled up with the default values. Okay, so display. So under the main function, okay, yes, the program seems lengthy, but like I said, okay, it's all once you understand the concept, it quite becomes easy. Okay, so here you have your parameterized constructor, call to the parameterized constructor. Okay, so using the class name the object gets declared here, xemb. Okay, now in this textbook, okay, there are some typing mistakes. Okay, there are some, you will see that as you go through thoroughly through the textbook, okay, you will see some, there will be some typing mistakes. Okay, there will be some printing mistakes, so try to correct those errors. Okay, as you see, notice that. Okay, so this is your parameterized call to the parameterized constructor, okay, as it is written here, default constructor. Okay, so here this is an implicit call, right? Okay, so the object itself, not the constructor, right? The constructor is not assigned, so the object itself initializes these values, right? So 100 Miss Sujata PhD computer 12,500. So this value is passed through the object, right? Now if suppose it was written here employee xemb equals to, okay, equals to what is the equals to, yes, employee. Okay, employee, and then within the function or within the bracket 100 Miss Sujata. Okay, then in that case that will be explicit call. You are directly calling the constructor, right? But in this case you're indirectly, okay, calling the parameterized constructor to do initialize these values. That means to initialize or to assign these values to the object data members. Okay, so like I said, keep in mind the purpose of the constructor is to initialize the object data members. Okay, the object, to initialize the object, so in this case the object data members. So where will this value go? Will be stored under the data members, right? So this is your implicit call to the parameterized constructor. Okay, so it will display xemb dot display, it will display this function body. Okay, so the values will be displayed here. After that this is just a normal, okay, for int like that, and here cout employee with overloading class method. Okay, so now we are using the class member functions. Okay, it shows you how to overload. Okay, so here are the class methods that are that has been declared. Okay, so here the object calls the member function emb over, okay, to pass these arguments 100 Miss Sujata PhD computer 12,500. Okay, so the object is accessing the member functions. Okay, since since in the case of the normal member functions, okay, the object cannot access the private data members directly, right? So the object is accessing the member functions to pass these arguments, these values 100 Miss Sujata PhD computer and 12,500, okay, to where? To here, here, no, here. Okay, overload class method 1, the first member function. Okay, so that value will be passed here. Now how does it know that it should be passed here? Because in the case of this, in the function definition section, okay, in this is the function call function, right? Under the call function, or in this function definition, okay, there are 4 parameters to accept the value that is passed, and the data types are same, right? The function name is same. Okay, so it search for the same number of parameters, okay. So in this case 1 2 3 4, right? So that is filled up and stored in here, 1 2 3 4. Okay, so it will execute this function body. Okay, so what value stored in E code will be transferred to the employee code data members. So you are initializing the object data members here. Okay, similarly, second one, after it displays the value, so this will display. Okay, so all the four cout statement will run, and it will display e code, e name, e designation, employee salary. Okay, now in the case of the second member function, xemb.emb over, okay, the object accesses the member function and to pass these values. So 101, so you can see the value has changed using the implicit call. 101 Mr. Raman, the name also has changed. Okay, PGD maths. So in this case, so you can see that you can create you can work out a real life problem, right? If suppose you have to create data for 100 employees, so this way you can change the values of the employees like that, right, using this overloading method. Okay, so using this overloading method, and not only that, you can see that the parameters also can be adjusted here using this overloading method, right? Okay, so in this case you can see that the only 3 arguments are passed, which means that the fourth argument, okay, the fourth argument is missing, right? But it will not result in an error. So in that case, it will search for the call function which has 3 parameters to be 3 parameters, that means 3 parameters declared. So in this case, second class method here in the call function, e code, e name, e designation, only 3 parameters, right? So it cannot be here because here only 2 parameters are there, and it cannot be in the previous one because 4 parameters are declared. Okay, so according to the parameter type, okay, according to the number of parameters, that value will be that function body will be called and accessed. Okay, and that value will be stored. So in this case, these 3 values will be passed by value to these variables. Okay, so what about, so when this xemb.display gets run, okay, and this gets displayed, it will display here 101 Raman and then PGD match. What about the EMB salary? The EMB salary, right, it still retains the previous value, right, the default value. So that default value will be displayed. Okay, so that default value will be displayed, that is 12,500. Okay, so in the case of the third one, okay, xemb over, okay, 102 Mrs. Rekha. So in that case, it means that this Miss Rekha, okay, she also teaches PGD maths, and she also teaches she is also getting 12,500. Okay, so that default value, the previous default value, will be assigned when this xemb.display gets called. Okay, so in the same way you can see that, see the output value Miss Rekha PGT maths 12,500. Okay, so using this class overloading method, class member overloading method, okay, it is possible to assign values uh, depending on the number of parameters. Okay, so next class I'll be discussing about constructor overloading. Okay, so you can have just a look at this program in advance. Okay, so yes, if you have any doubts on this, you can ask me. Okay, so classes and objects, study nicely. Once you are familiar with the classes and object, okay, this the whole program will be writing down the whole program or practicing on the whole program will become much easier. Okay, so that will be for tonight.